always happy to see you. It's wonderful to see everybody.
Wonderful to see you.
Thank you so much for making the time. All right, well, let's get right into it. All right, everyone ready? Okay. Well, thank you all for joining us this afternoon at Randolph's Turner Free Library. We've been here before. We've come together to celebrate our innovative investments that I've had the honor of working closely with you on, in particular with Town Manager Howard, the Select Board, and the Turner Free Library to secure federal funding. So we've come together in this space for that reason. We've come together to talk about those investments in your mobile library and STEM programming here in town. And now today we're here to talk about the work that is at the core of the mission of community libraries like this one. And that is free access to information and public education. People of all ages should feel at home in our public libraries and walk through the door greeted by books that reflect the diversity of lived experiences in their neighborhoods and around the world. Libraries open doors, and they save and change lives, period. I want to thank our co-conveners for this afternoon's conversation, Elizabeth LaRossi, Louisa Penna-Lyons, for their commitment to their communities and for their sweat equity in pulling this conversation together. My love for books is no secret. I am an only child. Books were most certainly my friends, but a book saved my life as a child who was experiencing childhood trauma and sexual abuse. When I first read Maya Angelou's I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, it was the first time that I knew I was not alone. So when I say that books save lives, I mean that. And that is certainly true for my own. And that is since my time in the beauty salon, sitting atop several telephone books with my head down, buried in a book, trying to stay out of grown folks' business, reading James Baldwin, Nikki Giovanni, the countless authors from the Harlem Renaissance that my father introduced me to. So when reflecting on the most challenging chapters of my life from childhood to today, I can recall passages that help me make sense of those feelings and see a brighter future beyond them. So it is not, hyperbole to say, again, that books have saved my life, and I know that that happens every day for many more. And the dangerous trend of banning books across this country threatens to erase contributions of thought leaders across the racial, economic, and social spectrum. Whether it be a textbook, whether it be a cookbook or a novel, books allow us to learn and explore at each stage of our lives. Their importance demands that we stand up and that we defend them. Now, states like Florida tend to dominate the headlines because of the glee some take in restricting access to books that dare to show the full range of what family can mean. But the reason I'm doing this in the Commonwealth is that I want to remind people that we are not exempt from this draconian march of extremism that seeks to ban our bodies and our books. Just because we're in the Northeast, we are not exceptional. And so it's important that we remain vigilant because these threats are everywhere. Here in the Commonwealth, we have seen a quadrupling in book challenges since 2021, with most of these challenge books being about or written by Black and LGBTQ plus individuals. So we have a duty to protect our history, our stories, and our gifts for future generations, and that begins with today's conversation. And I should say, I was so excited to see you. As I always say about Randolph, prepare to be sick of me. So I went out of order with the agenda. So please forgive me with that. Elizabeth was actually supposed to open this up and introduce me, but I wanted to be respectful of everyone's time because we were running a little bit behind. But Elizabeth, I would love to hear from you, and then we can have everyone introduce themselves and then get into the conversation.
I'm actually going to pass it to my lovely library director to introduce.
Okay. Okay.
Just because I'm right here.
Okay.
Easy, yeah.
Okay.
Yes, my name's Sharon. I'm the library director here at the Turner Free Library. It's my pleasure
to welcome you all here today, and of course to welcome you, Congresswoman Pressley, back. We're bookmobile shopping, so
Yes.
we're pretty excited, and we're delighted to have you with
She
us
has
here
such
again
a
today.
library science voice. I can barely get through this. I mean, this is like quintessential, like central casting, you know. Oh, so I love it. Okay, go ahead.
No, now it's you again.
Okay, that's it. That's all you're gonna say. Okay. Is your full name is Sharon Parrington, right?
That's me.
Okay, we want to make sure we get that right for the press, okay? A local hero, we appreciate you. All right, so why don't we just start here and then go all the way around. If each person would just introduce yourself, your affiliation, what brings you to this space today, and we can just have a freewheeling discussion. I have some questions.
Hi, I'm Samantha Leskey. I'm the new Children's Librarian here. I've been here for a month,
Oh.
and I love it. It's so much fun,
Congratulations.
and I feel passionate about banned books. I love banned books week. Makes me really happy to fight censorship. So yes, I'm excited today.
Okay, all right. Well, I'm glad you're here. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes.
Hi, I am Joanne Batson. I am the Teen and Young Adult Engagement Manager here at the Turner Free Library. And I am here because of my passion for intellectual freedom. And books, obviously. That goes without saying.
Okay, well said. Yes.
I'm Susan Lane. I'm the Randolph High School librarian, and I am here because I was invited.
Okay.
I'm the other hyphenated Sharon. I'm Sharon Artis Jackson. I'm a representative today of the Randolph Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition, but I'm also a library trustee.
I'm Reverend Tim Sylvia. I serve the community as senior pastor of First Congregational Church right next door. And the church has had a long history of partnering with the library, and also as an openly queer man, this is a topic that's extremely important to me.
Hi, I'm Ann Lustwork, and I'm attending my first trustee meeting this week, and I was really happy to be invited to this meeting because I really think not banning books is important.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Mike Schultz. I'm on the select board in neighboring Milton, and it's a pleasure to be in Randolph and a pleasure to be with you again, Congressman.
I'm glad you're here because it's a regional issue.
And I'm Will Adams. I'm the library director from Milton. I'm also a co-chair for the Mass Library Association's Legislative and Advocacy Committee. And you're right, I'm here because this does happen in Massachusetts. It's not just for.
Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Ross Denny, and I'm also from Milton, and I'm here from the school committee. And it's also very important to us that, in education especially, that access to a variety of books gives students the opportunity to learn different perspectives and how to think for themselves. If they don't have the capacity to see varying points of view, and we haven't taught them how to discern, how to come up with their own opinion, then we would have failed in our job.
Hi, hello, Congresswoman Pressley. My name's Maura Dede. I work at the Massachusetts Board of Library Commissioners. I'm a public librarian, but I currently work at the state level supporting our public libraries. So when you talk about the library's challenges at quadruple, I consult with them when they're facing challenges, help them talk through their policies, kind of procedures, what to do on the ground. I also serve as part of Massachusetts Library Association, along with Will, on the legislative committee and also the intellectual freedom committee as well. So thank you for having me here today.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Vivian Wilson from Milton and a grandmother of 3 grandkids, and I just want to learn more about these banned books.
All right.
Hello, Congresswoman Pressley. I'm Jen Irby-Leggett, proud clinical social worker. I run a mental health practice in Rosendale where we see a lot of kids who come in with the effects of not seeing representation on their lives, either being BIPOC or queer or trans kids. I also just had my kids graduate from the Milton Public Schools, and my youngest, who I'm fiercely proud of, is a queer trans young person whose life has probably been saved by books again and again, and also probably by some excellent teachers who showed representation in our schools, and who don't work in the Milton Public Schools anymore for whatever reason. And I think the issue of representation is incredibly important, and the thought of books being removed from our libraries or schools is just a horrible one to me. So I'm here to represent all of that. So thank you for
Congresswoman Pressley, Leslie McCarthy. I'm from Milton. I'm one of the co-presidents of one of the elementary schools at Milton, and we're doing a lot to make sure that kids get access to books that have representation for them. And so really excited to be part of this conversation. It's such an important one.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Beth Flakes. I'm the other co-president of the Tucker PTO in Milton. And I'm really here because we had an experience pretty recently where our librarian had read an LGBT book, and a parent had feelings about it and wrote in a conservative website, and I think we were kind of taken by surprise. We're a very welcoming and inclusive community, and the idea that we would limit the books that we read to our children to not represent all of our families, I think took us by surprise. We were able to turn it into a positive and raise $700 to buy more LGBT books. So stick it to the man, and we're here to work with any other co-conspirators to do good work.
Can you say your name again?
Mary Beth Flakes.
Okay, I just want to make sure they credit that quote to you.
I'll help you raise more
They'll
money.
be like, Representative Presley goes rogue.
Yes,
Stick
I
it to
will
the
buy
man.
all the gay
Like,
books. This school in Milton.
I co-signed it, but I didn't say it. Okay.
Thank
All
you
right.
for having
Thank you. All right.
All right, my name is Brian Howard. I'm the town manager here in the town of Randolph. I'm certainly fortunate to have two individuals that work for me and work for this community that do an amazing job on behalf of the residents of this community in our library. Both Liz LaRossi from the Tippy Top and also to Sharon for her work on a day-to-day basis, and the staff of the Turner Free Library. Randolph takes this topic extremely serious. It is something where, as a community that is diverse and welcoming and as open as Randolph is, there are times when certain topics, which tend to be topics that be very political in nature, and as the Congresswoman was speaking about, a lot of these topics that whether it's race, sexuality, reproductive health, these are the topics that tend to be the focus at a national level and then permeate down to the local level. And these are complex topics. This is where books are so critical, so that people have an opportunity to learn more, read more, be able to challenge their own beliefs. It's just so important, and any attempt to shut that down has to be stopped immediately. We're Americans. Freedom of being able to express yourself is critical, and part of that is having access to libraries and reading. So we definitely here in town will continue to make sure that our residents have access and the ability to decide for themselves what it is that they would like to read. Because I have my own thoughts on different topics, but I don't have the right to tell you can't read about the topics that you want to read about. It's just not who we are at our core. So this is thank you for putting this together, because it is something that sometimes, as you mentioned, Massachusetts has always been like, wow, that doesn't happen in Massachusetts. Well, a couple of years ago, we had a candidate for state office who was tweeting out some stuff that wasn't factual, but definitely caused people to reach out to us and say, well, we don't want that book in Randolph. And I said, well, you don't have to come to Randolph and visit our library then. I mean, that's really, in essence, what it comes down to. So thank you again for putting this together. Very, very important discussion and topic.
Grateful for your leadership and partnership on this, and really every issue of consequence to the town of Randolph. Appreciate you.
Absolutely, and you've already mentioned it, but I'm going to mention it again. Due to the work of Congresswoman Pressley, Liz LaRossi, and Sharon in writing a grant that has been accepted through the congressional process, Randolph will be getting a bookmobile. And in a town like Randolph, where not everybody has easy and quick access to this type of information. So we're having our public events to try and gather our community together. We're now going to have the opportunity to have the bookmobile there. And it'll visit the schools on obviously, but the ability for us to take that next huge leap, is just awesome, so we can't thank you enough for that.
Welcome back to Randolph.
Yes.
Chris Alexopoulos. I serve Town Council, District 4 in the north side of town. When I got a notification from Liz that they were looking for someone to sit on this panel, I was more than thrilled to be here. For me, growing up, my uncle, Adam Zervos from Canton, he's a Greek immigrant. He was an author who wrote the first book on Greek baseball players, the first Greek-born author to write it, and it's actually in the Hall of Fame now.
Wow.
So when I was briefed on this, I thought, it's a wonderful thing to be able to share different experiences, especially with different topics in books, and to be able to restrict, someone's freedoms isn't very American. So more than thrilled to be here to discuss this topic. I know I've had personal experiences with my uncle being an author, with getting a message across, and that's what these books do. Is books they're designed to tell a story, to get a message out there, and to suppress that is not very American. So I'm more than happy to be here and discuss it.
Agreed. I'm glad you're here. And I think it's also important to underscore, this is about, I would say, workforce development in our future as well, because if we agree that reading is fundamental, then we need to incentivize and foster a love of reading, which is why we wanted to support things like a bookmobile. It's about access, but about fostering that love of reading as well. But I did want to just turn to Jen, and then I would love to hear from, I have two questions to start us off. The first is, Jen, can you just, for people who might not understand the gravity of the importance of this sort of representation, and you were saying you have the opportunity to be treating young people every day who certainly would have benefited from that kind of representation. Can you just talk about how that shows up? Let's start there.
Of course, thank you. So again, I employ therapists. We see lots of young people, 12, 13 through adults, and we see lots of kids from these communities and adults who weren't able to have representation in their lives, and then eventually came to terms with being gay or continuing to address racial trauma in their lives, those sorts of things, and knowing that their parents wouldn't let them look at certain books or not, and that's in the home, not the school banning certain books, but absolutely deleterious to their mental health. Absolutely. To not see representation of themselves in books, to not have images that could potentially help of whether you want to be a plumber, you want to be an astronaut, you want to, any of those things, just gives kids the message that anything about them, this certain controversial thing about them means that they're not as important, means that they're not as seen, and that has absolutely negative effects on children's mental health. The banning of books about queer and trans kids, anything that has to do with the lack of affirmation for queer and trans kids, not using their names, all those things, is absolutely associated as one of the most dangerous things that you can put in front of them, and is associated with spiking suicidality rates. That's something I've studied pretty deeply. And for Milton to have all these great free little libraries right after the murders of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd, and then for there have to be a very special effort for there to be books including images of black girls, to say to one of my best friends that I would love to go get a book for her granddaughter, and we only had guarantee of that when our anti-racist coalition made a specific effort to put those books in there. It's a serious problem, and I think it affirms to kids and to adults that they're not real, they shouldn't exist, this is shameful. So I think we see it in therapy when people are incredibly depressed, when they have internalized racism, internalized homophobia, and these are small things as a democratic community that we have to ensure are there every day. So thank you.
Thank you. Well articulated there. And then I would love to hear from Leslie and Maribeth just about exactly what did happen in Milton. So.
So
our experience was that our librarian who shared amongst our 4 elementary schools, he's wonderful, was reading a story with LGBT characters to a young group of, a young class, and when the family at home understood from their student what the content of the story, the family makeup was, took issue with that being expressed in our school, and subsequently shared their thoughts through a conservative channel. What was upsetting, really, as a community member, is to hear our librarian being called in question for his choice in what he reads to our children, and then also what the impact it has on our children when they're hearing adults having issue with the story that they heard in school. I think Leslie and I pride ourselves on how diverse our small school is. We're the small school in Milton. We're very diverse, and that is what makes us so special. And to think, even I think unjustly, that I just assumed that we were protected from that, and so we were surprised, I think, caught off guard to hear that we weren't, much like we assume Massachusetts is not Florida. But that we still need to work every day to protect our kids and to protect our families and our staff.
Right, and I'm going to get into that with the library sciences in a moment. Leslie, would you like to build on that?
And I would just say one thing, just to talking about staff, supporting the teachers, because I think our librarian is wonderful, and he felt very confident in reading this book, and I think going forward would do the same thing again. But you don't, if the community isn't supporting and we aren't vocal with our support of representation in books, teachers are going to look at 2 books on the shelf and pick one instead of the other. This is the non-controversial book that I'm going to read, and then they're leaving these books on the shelf, even in their classroom. They're not sending the books home with the children. So I think that's something as the PTO we're working on. We created a diverse book club where we're making sure it's open to any student that is able to come. I'm picking a different book every 6 weeks or so, and showing teachers support that these are the books that we think our community should be reading, should be celebrating. Sometimes there's timely topics along with it, but we're all in this together. So I think that's something, again, we thought we were immune, and we certainly are not.
Beverly? Would anyone else like to build on that? Anyone else from Milton want to build on that?
I just think it's important that we recognize we're at a point in time where people have the liberty to change history, literally. And it's not happening with the story I'm thinking of isn't here, but we are not far from it coming here. And what I have seen, at least in terms of Milton and central office embracing the AP African American History course, which is banned in other places, but not giving students the opportunity to learn about the abolitionist movement and those who weren't supportive of it, you're robbing them of discerning on their own why it was right or wrong. And I think most students would come to the correct conclusion if they were given all the information. What happened to this librarian in question and the response of our community gave me very good comfort in knowing that we have more families that want to be on the right side of history than those who were supportive of the attack of someone who was doing their job and actually doing it well, and recognizing that we have families in our community that mirror what was in that book. And to say that that book shouldn't be read was saying that they don't have the right to exist. And I wouldn't want my child to come home and say, Mom and Dad, you shouldn't be here because we're not allowed to read books about Black families. It's no different. But I'm very proud of the response and the fundraising that came from it, because it reassured me that there are more people who want to be on the right side of history in Milton than not.
Thank you. That's an important reminder that these books are not just enshrining history. We're actually in a moment of history right now in terms of how we respond and react to this and meet the moment. Would love to hear from folks in Randolph. Anyone who would like to weigh in about experiences here? Any organized efforts? Have you experienced that? And then I would just love to hear, because I am concerned about library sciences, and if this de-incentivizes people from pursuing being a librarian in the same way that we are seeing with OBGYNs and gynecology, because it's not just patients that are being criminalized, it's providers and prescribers. And so people that are in the profession want to leave, or people who had it on their heart no longer want to go that path. And I would just hate to see that happen when it comes to our librarians. So if you would just speak to what exactly have you experienced or seen here in Randolph, and how is that affecting not only the community who benefit from the incredible services here, but your staff?
Absolutely, yeah. I think to sort of take your first question, we tend to see more of what we would consider soft censorship here in Randolph. So for example, books being misshelved, books being turned away. So we've walked past a number of displays and you'll see books that have been faced backwards, for example, or tucked behind a shelf, or lost deliberately is, again, predominantly what we're currently seeing. That said, Town Manager Howard had referred to an incident a couple years back now where a candidate for election had referenced our library specifically. For us, we really saw it as an opportunity to do more. The book in question, Genderqueer, is on the most challenged list of books for a number of years now. It's back on the top spot for 2022 as well. We made sure we had that book front and center in this building after we found out this news. That said, to go to your second question, it is a matter of concern for library staff, and it has, I think, a really detrimental impact on staff mental health. It's a question now where not only do we have to be worried about our staff, being abused online, over the phone, in person, but frankly, I'm worried for their physical safety in a way that perhaps we wouldn't have been even a few years ago. It is something where we see, very, very disturbing language used online, and we want to make sure our staff get safely to their cars every night. So I think it absolutely has a chilling effect. It's something we're working very hard together to combat, because we want to be here for our community. Ultimately, book banning and attempts at censorship reflect a complete lack of trust in our community, in our people, in the people that we interact with every day. And I know Randolph is capable of making their own decisions. We trust our library patrons. We trust our children and our families and everyone who frequents this library to be able to make their own decisions about what they read.
Anyone else? General commentary or reaction to those points? And I would love if people would share a book that shaped, changed, or saved your own life. Sharon?
I first want to say that Randolph is among the top most culturally diverse towns in Massachusetts, if not the top. And that's not an accident. People have worked very hard to assure racial, cultural, ethnic diversity in this town. And I want to speak again about the Randolph Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition. It is a coalition that was started a few years ago to ensure that our neighbors are unified, no matter what their background is. And so I'm very happy to be a part of that. The book banning has its roots in folks' desire to impose their agendas on others. So I find it very interesting that those who are fighting book bans are accused of imposing a certain agenda to the general masses, when in fact it's just the other way around. We want to assure that if you have an opinion, if you, as Brian said, if you don't agree with me, that's okay, that's fine. If you have a problem with something that I believe in, that's okay. But keep my right to read and my children's right to read, and my children's right to be reflected in books that they read. So,
Well, thank you for for bringing forward, first of all, the contradiction in that those who seek to deny access to these books will claim that that is in the name of liberty and freedom, but it is very much in contradiction to that. And, you know, if I just think about our, as Black Americans, our ancestors, that was one of the chief ways with which to oppress a people, was to deny them the right to read. So it is fundamental to all freedoms, bodily autonomy, intellectual freedom. Reading is so much. Books are so much more than we often do. And I think these bans actually prove the power of books. I mean, that is the point, right? So.
And I just want to add, when you brought that up, two things occurred to me when I knew that we were going to be here today. Two historical events. One, the banning of reading, of teaching reading and writing to slaves. Two, the whole banned in Boston movement that was part of the early 20th and late 19th century. So in both of those were infringements upon empowerment. And if you don't believe that books and learning to read and write can empower you, look at Frederick Douglass, look at Phyllis Wheatley, for example.
Excellent. Okay. Anyone else? I'm getting the signal that we have to wind down in the interest of time. So I want to have an equality of voice and hear from as many folks as possible. So.
I just wanted to follow up and thank you for those words and just say that Banned Books Week has been around for about 40 years. Books have been banned for, centuries. And it used to be a reminder of what would it take to ban a book, or why, this was a reminder to us. But we don't need that reminder anymore because we're facing it every day. It used to be 1 week a year that we would talk about banned books. But we're at the point where school libraries and public libraries are facing this on a much more regular basis. And to get to Sharon's point earlier, librarians are resilient, but they're burning out. This is a lot of stress, and it's stress that didn't exist for librarians 3 years ago, 5 years ago. Yes, there's always been some challenge, but now there's a lot more vitriol behind it. Banned Books Week is a reminder that this is something that we used to only have to really celebrate and talk about once a year, but now it's every day for us.
Thank you.
If I may, can I just provide kind of what's happening what's in statute already to help protect our public libraries. So on this information sheet, which I had the privilege of helping write this at our agency, but there is already in state statute since the early 80s requiring our public libraries to have a collection development policy, and this is a document that informs how materials are selected for that library, and it's an expression of a community's values for the kind of materials that they want to have in there. And so this is an important piece in a conversation around challenging the content in our public libraries for this document for directors and for trustees to say these are the guidelines by which we have our books. It's not our personal opinions. We're developing this collection to reflect our community, and we are trained professionals through library school and learning the nuances of our communities. School libraries don't quite have this level of protection in statute in Massachusetts. There's also, it's very unequal about the number of certified school librarians that students have access to, and there's data that correlates access to school librarians for academic outcomes.
I was thinking about that with the Milton example, with one incredible librarian, but for 4 schools.
For 4 schools, right? So there's a lot of work to be done about supporting our certified librarians and getting librarians in our schools equitably across every district in every community. There is, so that's one thing I wanted to share around kind of the state perspective that I have.
thank you.
My pleasure.
And thank you for this as well.
Yes, my pleasure.
You know, as a voracious reader, I promise to read all of this. I will. Would anyone else have any, comments that they'd like to add in terms of why they wanted to be here today, why this is important to you, how else we can best support you in your respective community roles?
As a children's librarian, I try to be the hardest. Where, yes, I want to protect children's right to read, their
Yes.
intellectual freedom and everything, but every parent has their own rules. Every parent has their own say in what they want their children to be exposed for, which I agree with. Parents do have the right to do that it's your child, but no parent has any other right to parent another child who is from an LGBTQ family. That parent should not be telling another parent saying that book should be banned because I don't live in that life. You live in that life, but their child should be able to pick up a picture book and see, like, Heather has two mommies. She has two mommies. She should be allowed to read it. And there's no reason why any book should be banned because it's important to learn books, and there's so many books in the children's department that help children grow up to be who they are as adults.
Well, that's a powerful note to end on. Thank you all for joining us. I just noticed this poster in the corner, which I have a lot of thoughts about. But what is that book? Patterson, what's the book I'm holding? What's this?
Believe me.
Oh, Believe Me. Oh, I'm in that book. I have an essay in that book. Okay. All right. Okay. So you were making me be self-promoting. All right. Thank you all. Thank you so much for what you're doing every day. Thank you. I think you're the front line. And so I thank you for being the front line, and just know that I have your back. And this is an issue that I will be championing not only during Banned Book Week or during National Book Month. Again, I see this as a part of a larger fight as there is an extremist move to ban our bodies and our books. And so just know that this is not a one-off, okay? So please do continue to do what you're doing, and let me know how I can continue to support you in doing what you're doing. And let's remain in touch on this issue specifically. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.